Enter madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, February the 19th, 2023. We're coming to you live here from Carter County, Tennessee, in the middle of the Iron Mountain. My name is Cliff. I'm joined by Dustin, as always, and here we got returning guest, Wilbur the Kilb. Thanks for joining us, Wilbur.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Tim's not going to be with us tonight. He'll be back next week. He had some stuff to take care of, so we will see him when we see him.
Considering the date, hopefully everyone survived the VD.
Hope you guys are remaining well with regard to your VD out there. Hope that went well for you. And what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of what Tim was noticing as far as maybe a possible recurrence or resurgence of the Satanic Panic, like similar to what we saw in the 1980s and late 70s. And I mean, it kind of comes and goes over the decades, doesn't it? Where people are, freaking out about some sort of satanic thing, but it's not always without merit, is it?
Yeah, they've worked before, so, recycle it and rehash it and throw it back out to the masses.
Yep. And a lot of times you see stories in the news, maybe, and they usually make national news or something if there is like a ritual murder involved. And so that really, it always makes a good news story, and it's something that people freak out about, and they kind of see it all around them after that. But, there's a lot of people who allege that there really is a lot more that goes on underground, and most of it doesn't make the news. And I have a little bit of experience with that myself, as I'll go on to explain here in a little bit. But Wilbur came over tonight, and he's brought something with us, a treat here. And why don't you tell us what you got, Wilbur?
Well, I've got a product coming out it's a Vodka Moon. It's actually a 50-50 blend of moonshine and vodka. And it's based upon character I play. I'm going to be putting out a video eventually of basically a vampire who runs a plasma center, and he's getting all the plasma, but he's stripping out the vaccines and all the impurities that have been, that's been dumped on us over the years by our government and all of our wonderful officials.
Yeah.
So it is kind of relevant to what's kind of going on now, because if the idea is if you strip all this out of the blood, it becomes pure like it was before.
Yeah.
And you actually just need a few drops. So you don't have to. It kind of magnifies the power.
The vampires can stretch it longer. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I actually happen to have that video available here. Do you want to go ahead and watch that? Let's check it out real quick.
I could be pouring.
All right, well, pour something. That'd be great. And I'll get that video queued up here, and we'll test some out. What we got here? What flavor we have?
Okay, this one is called Forbidden Fruit, and it's basically kind of like a pomegranate flavor.
Sounds good.
But it's in the early testing stage, but we're looking at 60 proof. And I got another one called Blood Moon, which is kind of a blood orange.
That'll do the job. Well, I'd like to try some of both of them if that'd be all right.
Oh, yeah.
Let's have us a toast of this one, and we'll say to Vodka Moon.
I guess we'll say Hell Satan.
That'd be a good one, wouldn't it? Let's have a toast.
Subject matter.
Oh, that's tasty. Tastes like Kool-Aid almost. Not overly sweet like Kool-Aid, but just sweet enough. I like it.
I lowered the proof a little bit to help the flavor
make it drinkable.
Yeah.
It's
definitely good.
Smooth.
It doesn't taste 60 proof, I'll tell you that. Yeah, it's tasty.
That's like the devil will sneak up on you.
Well, let's watch your video real quick.
Toxic tease.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. My name is Toxic Kill, and this is the toxic world that I created for you. I make t-shirts for the downtrodden, the forgotten people like you. Won't you come on into my world and see what I have planned for you?
Boone County, by God, Virginia.
Then, Master, make me monster!
Wilbur, this is how I always imagined that your basement would look.
Still got all this set up. And the hidden messages are in there too, so.
Yeah. Oh, I thought that was the Plasma Center one. Did you do a Plasma Center one too?
That's what the show's going to be.
Oh, okay.
It kind of turned into just this character. I thought, well,
Yeah.
a doctor or a physician on duty, and it's the whole idea is to. But it also it turned into us having to wear a mask and all the control mechanisms that's been put down on us. It's like, well, this vampire's he's not a bad person. As a matter of fact, he's not even biting people. He just wants the blood given voluntarily.
Yeah, right.
So the idea is that you come on to this show, it's like a podcast like we're doing here, but if you're in a band or you're promoting your thing, you basically have to donate plasma. And the idea is that you don't realize it until after you sing your song or promote your whatever it is. You get to reading the fine print, and it's more than just a small amount. It's quite a bit of blood that you have to give up, but you've done signed it. But it's more of a, it's not biting anybody. And just to take the blood, purify it, get the vaccines, and not only vaccines, but all the impurities,
Right.
and all the crap that's in there. So I thought, well, hell, I don't think nobody's done that angle, you know. So once it gets filmed and edited and everything, and it'll be in this same style as that commercial was, because I really like that old grainy 70s horror kind of vibe. So
what was it's still different, but it kind of reminds me, what was it, like Daybreakers? It had Sam Neill in it. It's like a vampire, like basically the vampires are taking over and they're basically using humans.
I don't remember that one.
They're like basically farming the blood out of them.
Because they know it was all going to run out, so they had to farm it.
Yeah, and like the blood was getting scarce, and the more scarce it got, the vampires became more and more monstrous, and the ones that actually got
that one.
insufficient on blood turned into more of like like the
Zombie.
Nosferatu or like the.
But that's kind of like, I've been doing this stuff, and I got accused of being a devil worshiper and all this stuff. And I was raised in a very Christian environment. My mother was very religious and took me to all kinds of churches. And I was the only one out of the kids that would really go with her. So, once I got old enough and started making my own decisions, Kiss, Nights in Satan's Service, you burn these albums, 3-headed snakes will come out of them. When you start seeing some of the stuff I was drawing, my mom, she flipped out. She didn't get it. So I came home and all my art and all my records were burnt, and all that made me do is I've got even darker. I started drawing more evil stuff, and actually it's like I was going to get payback because I didn't want to go to church anymore, because I seen a preacher got caught having an affair. I didn't know what was going on at the time, but they actually kicked him out of the church. And when they were dragging the trade, because back then I guess they still do it now, the preacher gets to live rent free.
Yeah.
So when they were hauling his double wide out, there was a section of the double wide went out in front of the church, and the septic tank, I guess, had not been, and there was like shit and toilet paper and everything right in front of the church just poured out. And I was sitting there like looking at this, and I thought, I didn't realize it, but in a way it was kind of like, symbolic.
Yeah.
So, I really kind of started going away from what religion was and stuff. And I felt like, this darker kind of stuff, whether it was in music or art or or anything like that seemed to have it appealed to me. And not that I was ever mean to people or wanted to do anything, but I felt like by projecting that gave me a strength over, people were afraid to mess with me.
Yeah.
Or, they thought, well, this dude, he's sitting around the back of the room drawing Satan and all this kind of crazy stuff, and he's talking about this stuff, but it's never to hurt anybody.
Now, I've seen a lot of your art, and it does have a very dark quality to it. Is that the same kind of stuff you were drawing when you were younger, and you kind of evolved?
Yeah, went from Kiss to dark. Most of the female figure. I did one called Buildings in Hell. I focused a lot on that kind of stuff, but the women's bodies were like the shape of the buildings, and I called it Buildings in Hell, and people's like, what? It's like, I just wondered if all the buildings in hell were shaped like women. And that, plus you have certain parts of the female anatomy in there, which is being a young guy, you're interested. So I was drawing what I was looking at and what I was seeing, and of course that didn't go over good at home, but it's about like the equivalent of getting caught with a Playboy. Yeah. Except my stuff was a lot darker and more, and I basically did it just to poke a stick at people who were hypocrites, that's what I call them. I mean, they're just flat out, it's always the devil's fault. The devil made me do it, so that's kind of like, I've learned to kind of do more toned down stuff, and it's tongue in cheek a lot of times, everybody.
And also saying the look at your art, it's like, hey, we've got several pieces around the room.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got Wilbur's art. And two of them behind us, and then we got the poor devil thing over here. And I know you started to look. I've had actually people walk out. I show them the business cards. Yeah. Poor devil graphics, and it's got the devil set up, and they just kind of walk out. Yeah. Nothing but the devil we got here. Well, that was something my grandmother used to say. Nothing but the devil. She ran a bar, was married 3 times, and really didn't raise my mother, but she found the Lord, and that resolved all her, indiscretions and her things. So she would say, that's nothing, that music's nothing but the, she'd have a cigarette in her, like, there's nothing but the devil. And I'm thinking, well, you've been married like 3 times and drank and whored around your whole life, and now you get a dose of the Lord, and it just kind of wipes the slate clean, and you get to judge people, you're the one that's going to hell. I'm saved now. I've done been saved by the Lamb of the Blood and all that crap. Me and Delmar's been saved. So it's easy to make fun of some of this, but I think it's just, when it boils down to it, we're just such pitiful creation. I mean, if this is the best God can do, I felt if when he went to school, God school, and said, this is my creation, this is humans, I mean, I would be embarrassed. I'd be like, if you had all this power to create everything and this is the best you can do, such a flawed piece of work, it's like turning in shitty homework.
Does he work for Electronic Arts?
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of like video games,
I gotta say the Earth and dogs are pretty good. You did a good job on that one, big guy. That's what I mean.
You're so good on everything else. Your prize creation ought to be able to at least, not fumble around and stumble, but I think that's just.
I guess that's part of it, though.
I guess is you got to play the game,
Well, if you think of it from, the perspective that I was given, I guess as I got older, was that was one of the reasons we got free will, is because it was much more rewarding to our Creator when we chose voluntarily to go along with Him versus having to be forced to. So that's why it always confused me when people had that idea of, well, we were going to force you to behave this way so you'll go to heaven. So I was like, if you make the decision if you don't make the decision to be good on your own, you do it because you'll be punished. Yeah. If you don't, that's not the same thing as actually being a good person, because as soon as you don't fear punishment, then you feel morally justified to do whatever you want if that's the only reason that you're taught. So I feel like the churches leave a lot of that stuff, leave a lot to be desired to that. Rather, they tell the story of the prodigal son and how, you're supposed to, to me, that's basically how you're supposed to go out and fuck up on your own. Your parents are right, they're going to tell you a lot of things, but as the parent, you're also supposed to let that child go and make their own mistakes. I think it's story is supposed to be a lesson for the parent as much as for the child.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times when churches tell that story, it's just like they use it as, well, always obey authority and everything will be okay is the lesson they can take from that, rather than it's okay to make mistakes, go out and learn from them and come back and, be willing to accept your kid once they've had a chance to go out on their own, give them the freedom, don't try to control them, but be accepting when they fail, because they will at some point, and just always be there for them.
Yeah.
But a lot of churches give the different emphasis on different parts of the story than that. And so you were talking about, you came home and your records and your art had been destroyed. About how old were you when that happened, or what year was it, if you want to
Probably,
put it that way?
I don't know, I was probably about 15 or 16. I didn't take a drink until I was 18 because I was scared to death to, my dad being a cop and everything. So I didn't do hardly anything until that's about 18. So, what it is, I skipped school. The last day of school, I skipped. So when I come home, it looked like, when the Grinch pulled down everything off the walls.
Yeah.
There was like all my Kiss posters. Kiss was the biggest thing. My parents, that was the one thing. And when you look at Kiss, it's like, that's really light.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but for somebody who, you listen to George Jones or Tom T. Hall, whatever your parents had in the house, and all of a sudden you come in, God of Thunder and blood and all this stuff, and they're like,
and Gene calling himself the demon.
yeah, the demon. And they go to church and they're like, people are telling them, well, if you take them, well, little Wilbur's been getting out. I've been finding these disturbing drawings, and he's not really been listening to us so much. Well, maybe because I'm getting older and you're a rebellious teenager, or is it scratch? The old Satan's coming in, and like you play them records backwards and stuff, and if you burn them, 3-headed snakes will come out. Mm-hmm. Somebody told my mom at church that. So she's like, I've got to save Willow Wilbur from all this demonic stuff, So he skipped school. So right there is the reason. I skipped school. When I come home, all my stuff was burnt. Well, I mean, it was just like, there was nothing and in my room. It was just like, everything that made me was torched, So it pissed me off. I mean, I just got even more, I was just cranking Black Sabbath, and because that was the next hardest thing. I mean, the Sabbath, which I found that was not really satanic. It was more of a warning about evil.
I've said that before, man. Like, how could you, I mean, I guess the imagery could lead people to think Black Sabbath was satanic, because they do have some really dark covers, and the names are, in the name Black Sabbath. That, I mean, obviously that sounds, I mean, that is a satanic mass, Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
But if you actually listen to the lyrics of the songs, like you said, it was more of a warning, and you could almost call it Christian music when you really listen to it, because it's
just telling a story about, good and evil. But really, if you just went what the Bible says, to be a good person and not covet and sin and all this stuff, if you just led your life that way and found out at the end there was no God, there was no Satan, there was just, if you just led your life by this principle, it's really not bad to be that way, because you were half decent and had some sense. You didn't go out and murder and pillage the village, and you were trying to be a decent person. So if you died and come to find out none of this was real, it's still not a bad thing. Because you have to wonder if somebody said there's no Satan, and when you die, it's just you're in the ground just like anything else, and that's it. Would you go out and start murdering, raping, and pillaging?
Right, no.
I mean, you have some kind of moral compass. Most of us do. Some people don't. But my biggest thing about Satanism is that whether it's true or not, there's people out there in this world who think it's real.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be a Satanist that just basically says, I'm responsible for my own being, and I'm not going to, let anybody else tell me what to do, but don't do harm to others, then that's not bad. You're a cool Satanist to me. But if you're the kind of person who is torturing kids like they talk about,
or sacrificing animals for,
anything like that you're called, I've got like 3 rules. You don't hurt old people, you don't hurt animals, and you don't hurt kids. Whatever you do in the privacy of your own bedroom is your business. but just don't try to convert me into your thing, because I got
Same.
my thing.
Yeah.
I could get along with anybody, but if you break those 3 rules, I'm going to have to, you may whoop my ass, but I'm going to have to, by the way I was brought up and what I personally believe, I'm going to have to step in, and I may get my ass whooped, but if, you know, anybody would, if you saw somebody hurting a kid, you'd step in.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't turn a blind eye to this stuff. So I look at whether it's Satan or there's just bad people in this world, which we know there are. There's people who are just wired weird. You know, when you look at them, you're like, how could somebody do that?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think one of the things that is an important part of religion, and one thing that it is good for, and every culture has it in some sort or another, whether it's a cultural story or religious tradition, but they have something to teach children not to hurt people. They give them a story to teach them not to steal, not to hurt people, until the child is old enough to develop empathy and understand, put themselves in the position of the person that they're harming, and say, hey, you know, because when you're 4 or 5 years old, you may not have considered that yet. It's human nature to rob and steal and hurt people and take their stuff. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to teach kids not to do it. So
there's got to be a punishment, you know, and it's usually pain.
Yeah. And
it's not painful if you're rewarded, you know, if you just, you know, if you do something wrong. I get the whole thing, but I wrestle with religion and satanic thoughts and all this stuff, and I've just always, you know, tried to be a good person, but I've seen what people can do, and I've used the phrase, I hate humans. You know, this planet would be a great place.
I see those T-shirts out in the wild
if there was no
regularly.
And usually it's, you know, you don't see anything else like us. It's going out and doing the kind of stuff, and especially you see what's going on today. It's like, I mean, I'm 58 now, and I'm thinking more about, I'm going to see the mushroom cloud, you know, because these idiots that's in charge, that to me, that's the evil in this world.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a horned character running around, or it's just our elected politicians, or the global bankers, or all, I mean, I'm just ready for it to all come down and just wipe the slate clean. Whether we come out on the other side as being here, I mean, I hope. You know, I mean, I've got grandkids. That's my biggest fear, is to wake up one day and, because of our stupidity, we screw this up to the point where, you know, people were really innocent never had a chance to get wiped out. And that would, I mean, I look at, sometimes if I was in a room with some of these people, would I kill them? Should I kill them?
Yeah.
Should I, you know, it's kind of like that movie where the guy was in the wreck and he starts having the visions, and he sees this politician, if he gets elected, he's going to nuke.
Oh yeah, the dead zone.
Yeah, dead zone. So if I had that kind of clairvoyance, should I go after Fauci or Gates, or these people that you think are going to try to do harm to humanity? Do I sacrifice myself to do away with this evil?
Well, I think the main thing is, and I definitely feel where you're coming from, but like I've said, one of the reasons that we do this show is very similar to that. One of the reasons that I'm in it is because I see this global surveillance grid, this digital inside and outside of us technocracy building all around us. And it's already really worse than 1984, because 1984, I mean, everything that happens in 1984 can happen to you now and then some. But it doesn't happen regularly enough and it's not in most people's lives. Like the CIA could be watching through this camera if they wanted to. If I said some sort of key word that gave them an excuse to have a warrant to have Patriot Act. No, you don't need a warrant, just a Patriot Act.
2 or 3 things.
Yeah, they could already be listening, because those things have been uttered in the microphone. And if they wanted to, they could raid this room right now. They know exactly where we are. They know exactly who we are. And
Don't take my liquor.
Hey, let me have. Do you mind if I try the blood orange kind there? Yeah, the Blood Moon. Yeah, I'd love a try of that.
What about that cap?
Oh, that's nice. Let me hold that up for the camera there.
I'm a detail guy. I like the details. I think that really adds a lot to the.
Let's see if I can get it up.
The other one's really
I can't get it to focus on it.
It's just a skull with bat wings, you know.
Yeah, I try to get the focus good on it, but it won't do it. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. That's.
But you know, if you think about it, I mean, that's what I've always liked the darker side of things, but I've always liked the revenge kind of stuff, like where somebody who was doing somebody wrong gets their just,
yeah,
you know, and I always like that kind of, you know, darker side of things coming to take out the people who are doing wrong.
Yeah, I always enjoyed that at the end of a movie where like, this is not an older one, but the first one that comes to mind, The Ninth Gate. Well, I guess it is kind of older now. The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp. It's a Roman Polanski film, and it's all about summoning the devil and story alert. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this 20-year-old movie.
Almost 30-year-old.
yeah. But at the end of it, the guy who's Johnny Depp, he's the good guy, and he's not even really a great guy, but he's somebody who ends up getting caught up in a guy trying to unleash hell on earth. Yeah. And is able to basically sabotage him, and then the guy, he burns himself alive, and you get a certain satisfaction from that sort of thing. People who fuck with that kind of power, it's nice to see them get their comeuppance, but it's also nice to see people who pretend to be other things get their comeuppance. When someone is staging to be, say, a Christian, like when that thing happened with the pastor, if I'm sure there were people who knew he was not a good guy, and I'm sure they were satisfied when he got caught having an affair and drug out of there. And when you told me about it, I imagined them riding him out of the church on a rail,
Yeah, I knew something was going on because, I went to church with my mom a lot and was actually baptized, and some people may find that hard to believe, but, I got dunked in the creek in Boone County. And I knew something was going on because there was, they shield the kids from all that, but you could just tell something was going on when there's not, the preacher that's usually there is not there. But when that trailer got pulled out in front of the church and everything, I seen it, but I couldn't connect the two. A lot of times things has happened to me that either I didn't have enough, I wasn't smart enough or old enough or hadn't been experienced enough to put the two together and think, but it's almost just symbolism. When you see something that happens to you and you're like able to put it together, and it's like when you get older and you're like, it's one of those aha moments.
You retrospectively look back at it and you're like, okay.
Yeah. So. This guy who sat there and, every night it was so much pressure and I did. It was some kind of a play or something. I was just sitting there chewing gum, eating Tic Tacs, looking up in the damn sky, and, was it time to go home yet? And it's what they call revival. So it's like a recruiting thing. Yeah. We got to get 20 souls tonight. We got to get people saved. I'm just sitting there chewing gum, looking around like it's no big deal. And then, by God, something, man, I started getting antsy and itchy and just kind of very uncomfortable. But I could not stop myself from going up to the altar and giving myself the next Sunday. I'm getting dunked. Going to church, and then next thing you know, the preacher's kicked out because he's fucking somebody in the church, and all this people who usually go to church, and my mom ends up going to a different church because all this just broke down. The guy who sat there and put me under the water is now gone. His shit and feces and toilet papers in front of the church, and I'm like, I think I'm just going to go home and listen to some
What
kids.
does this even mean? Yeah,
I'm going to go home and listen, draw some monsters and watch some, but I've always... I don't think you can just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a Satanist, what is, to me, it's just worshiping something else. It's no different than God, I think a lot of people just live their life and then all of a sudden they get old and sick and they're like my grandma did, she done her thing, got married 3 times and told me I shouldn't marry a woman who's been married because she's like a dirty wash rag. She's been used by men. I said, well, what's that make you? You've been married 3 times. But you got dipped in the water.
You got dipped in the holy washing machine.
And now you're going, and I'm like, it just blows me away that people could be so hypocritical.
And how does she know this other woman hasn't also been saved? So
you're the only one. Yeah, it's so many. They use this as such a, I don't know.
It's like they can judge you on your past. They don't know whether you've been saved. Maybe you're a private person about that. Maybe you don't know running around telling everybody if you have had a religious convert. But they're still going to judge you based on your past, and at the meantime telling everybody else that's why we gotta give ourselves over to Jesus so we'd be forgiven. I wanted to look at a little bit of. This was in the news. This was one of the things Tim was telling me about. about Sam Smith and his performance at the Grammys, and apparently he was making a lot of waves on right-wing Twitter and saying he was satanic, and here's his costume. It just looks gay to me. I don't know.
Dude, you can go to Hot Topics and get
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes, it's a tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
honestly.
just joking, but, I mean...
Well, I'll tell you, somebody I think might be a real Satanist. I don't know, but they like Jack Black and Kyle Gass. So it may just be a show, but they kind of seem like they live like that. And some of the Satanists are, I don't think they actually worship Satanists. They're more like humanists. And
well, realistically, I guess kind of the saying of being a Satanist, it's more of the worship of yourself.
Yeah.
It's not actually, the more if you actually want to worship, say, quote unquote, the devil, it's more if you would say a Luciferian.
yeah. Well, and that would also be more of see a lot of people that call themselves Satanists, like I said, are just atheists, humanists. But then you also do have actual Satanists who worship it, and some people worship the devil. That's probably a smaller piece of them who are actually, hell, Satan, all that stuff. But there's also those who embrace the dark side of their nature, or the carnal part of existence, and that maybe more of a hedonist. And then there's those who are also who look at it from a deeper philosophical perspective, like we've talked about before. A lot of these Masons get accused of being Satanists because they when you get to a higher level, if they try to understand or try to explain things to someone who doesn't really understand what Masonry or these other organizations are, they'll talk about how Jesus and Satan are brothers and they're two sides of the same coin, and it's really an exploration of human nature. And that's a lot of, like, I read some Crowley and people talked about how he was into, and it is like this real base desire, carnal stuff. But in there, it's a study of the human mind and the human psyche, and it's basically taking different aspects of your psychological makeup and assigning a name to them. Like, this demon here is actually part of your brain that when you entertain it with certain images and certain thoughts, like, that activates part of your brain to go and do something, to stimulate it more. And it's the same thing with a lot of these summonings. Like, these were actually just activating, through symbols and senses and sights and, different smells and things that were incorporated into these rituals. Not all of them satanic, but they would actually stimulate certain parts of your brain and kind of, you could activate some part of your psychology that's maybe latent or dormant, or you could suppress a part of your psychology that is causing you trouble. And that was kind of the idea for a lot of these things, more than actually summoning a demon. And like I said, you have to read some Crowley and stuff to get to where he goes into that.
You're talking about Mr. Crowley.
Yeah.
I figured there was only one.
Yeah,
there's a dude that lived on Crowley Creek, but
back on Crowley Creek.
Yeah, he's about 300 pounds, and he didn't look very evil. He might fall on you. You didn't want him to fall on you.
Might be a glutton.
Never did.
That stuff is good, Wilbur. I'm about to drink too much of it because it tastes so good.
It'll sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Like I said, like the old Scratch, man, he'll sneak up on you.
It tastes like a good mixed drink. Where are people going to be able to get this?
Well, I mean, I've done hundreds of labels through the distillery for people, and this
What
was
camera are we on? And be like,
Oh yeah.
this is the first.
a nice showcase.
This is the first time that I've actually got. Yeah, I put my ugly mug. When you
There we
put
go.
your own face on something, you better be ready to back the shit up.
Yeah.
But the idea is, I mean, right now we could sell it at the distillery. Like I said, right now we're still going through the flavors. These two, the colors look exactly alike. I wanted something blood, and I looked. Nobody seemed to have. First of all, nobody has a vodka and a moonshine mix.
Yeah.
It's super
Openly.
smooth. It's
Openly saying, because we got a damn good vodka, and when you mix our moonshine's top shelf.
Y'all, they did a taste test with their vodka, and a blind taste test. They beat Tito's, which is
Quite a few times.
yeah. That's like the
that's pretty.
And
Yeah,
I think it's, they say it's because the water on the property, we're not on city water. We actually have a well. It's a little calcium, but it's like a whole lake
yeah.
under the distillery. So we got all the city water, and which is good if shit hits the fan too. Yeah. So we're kind of like, the compound,
You
so
got like concrete buildings and stuff too.
yeah, that's why they call it the compound, but Tony had offered, he's like, if you want your own bottle, but I never felt like, I've seen people come and go who got their own label and just didn't have the nuts or once they got it, they just didn't push it.
Didn't do anything with it.
So I'm more like, well, it'll be available at the distillery, and we're doing a lot of events. We got a stage being built, and we're going to have a lot more music and everything. But to me, it's a marketing tool.
Yeah. It's
to go along with this TV weird podcast idea I have, plus all my weird shirts and stuff like that, and I'm kind of going off in a political thing. Before I was just like lowbrow, you just stick it in your face, and if you liked it, I like to basically take what's really going on out there and just kind of twist it just to upset people, Like people used to always say, we need prayer in school, that's what's wrong with school, there's no prayer. And I'm like, okay, let's bring prayer back. Who's going to lead the prayer? Well, the teacher. Well, what if the teacher is Muslim? Oh, hell no. No, we got to get a Baptist. Well, no, you got to open up that door. Yeah. So I did a little drawing. This woman, Holy Roller Robin, she had her little Church of God honey bun, had a little Bible. Well, over here you had to do from Ancient Aliens saying, it could be the flying spaghetti monster. Over here you had over here you had the dude that looked like Anton LaVey saying, thanks for opening the door. So once you open that door, you've got to let everybody.
Yeah.
I would rather you teach kids how to keep a budget, a checkbook, learn a skill, than worrying about, religion.
Yeah.
I say if you want 2 minutes to pray to whatever God's relevant to you, sit there in silence, and then start teaching people something.
Yeah.
Besides,
so when they get out in the real world,
standardized testing that really. None of it's ever helped me, really.
Yeah, and that's one of the main things that I have a problem with, like the states and feds getting their money and everything, because, we spend so much money on education, but it all comes with the strings attached of having those standardized tests. That is what they all focus on, because if they don't do it the right way, they don't get the money on it. And meanwhile, if a school doesn't have all that funding, then, they don't have enough money to afford how much everything costs, because everything's been inflated by the federal and states putting so much money into education, causes the price of everything to go up.
But how we usually say, more government's always bad. Like in the 70s when we got the Department of Education, how we went from being like some of the top education in the world to now we're pretty much shit.
Yeah, we're like in the middle of the pile of industrialized nations.
In 40 years, it's like we went from top to
Yeah.
And we did
bottom of the first world and everything.
Well, one of the reasons that we were so much better before is because when we you can recognize if a child doesn't have an aptitude for scholastic material and scholastic study, and by the time they're a teenager, if they don't show that aptitude, then why are you continuing them to prepare them for college and things like this, and insisting everybody has to go to college? Yeah, I know we do have technical paths and the STEM stuff on that, but it's almost like kids are made to feel as if that's the lesser path, and like if you want to make something out of yourself, you go to college, rather than if you actually go out to learn to do something useful. And
it's always like tech schools and trade schools. You're like,
yeah,
they always teach you like that, right? If you don't go to college, you ain't gonna be shit.
But you see the ones that went to trade school have no debt or making
and making bukus a lot more money.
Yeah, and they've got more work than they can take care of. You got somebody. Well, I went to college and I got this kind of degree and nobody likes me.
Got $100K in debt and I'm drowning.
Yeah,
it's like, but Billy over here went to a school and paid like $5,000 and he's making $50K a year easy around here, which is our demographic, that's pretty good money.
Well, Wilbur, you were talking about not really having the nuts to push your stuff out there and stuff like that, and I think that's where people fail.
Well, it's a business.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
People don't understand an alcohol. You think, I could just go sell it. No, we sell to a distributor. It goes to the store. Once the distributor gets it, it's out of our hands. Except what we sell at our store at the distillery. Alcohol in this state is it's a 3-tier system, and you get into that mess. The same distributor that we have for our moonshine also sells Old Smoky so you got somebody that's got a huge hedge fund, got all this money, got Gatlinburg. Who do you think they're going to? Two guys from Piney Flat saying, "Hey, we got this cool taste of liquor, everybody likes it." Snooze, So
But in the retrospect, if you're like, your stuff's legit and it's not.
it's a lot better, you know, but it's almost like everybody said, you need to put a billboard up. Oh, the billboard doesn't, you know, if the
not
liquor
gonna
store wants to
affect the
order
distributor.
it and your distributor don't deliver it, well, I mean, it's actually legalized mafia.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's kind of like in my, you know, me and Wilbur, we're not just friends. We've done business together. I've had him do graphics for my business, and the business that I'm in, it requires licensing, right? And you think, well, first when you hear licensing, that like that's to protect safety and to protect clientele, but I find that really it's a way for the people who are already in business to have an entry barrier to stop you from being able to come in and do your own. Because in order to do a lot of skilled trades in Tennessee, you have to have a license. I'll give you an example. My dad, when I was a kid, my dad quit his job and had invested a bunch of money into drilling wells and hadn't investigated properly the licensing system. In order to drill a well in Tennessee, you have to have 2 years experience working for a licensed well driller. And it's like this with many of the other trades, right? So in order for you to work as a licensed well driller, you have to work for a guy for 2 years. Well, there was only one guy in the whole Tri-Cities area at that time who was licensed. So was he going to hire somebody to compete against him? No.
so if you went to work for him, you had to be very covert, like, oh, how do you do this?
Yeah, if you were planning to
If you ask too many questions and be like, you know, motherfucker, I know what you're getting ready to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh, shit, I
worked
got
for him for a year and a half.
You're like,
and
I was almost
yeah.
there.
11 months.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So it's a barrier for entry, and a lot of skilled trades in Tennessee are set up like that. Where
I think they call that cock blocking.
yeah,
I mean, no matter what your field is, the people at the top who have the money to lobby and fix the rules and all this stuff, you know, yeah, you know, if you look at, I mean, every field has that. Mm-hmm. But, you know, alcohol being what it is, it's very highly regulated and controlled. Some states are a little cool. Some states, the states deliver it, and they don't care. They're just about sales. But in a franchise state where you've got people you're signed with somebody who also has multiple customers, brands locked down, and that brand has to be bigger than you and more money. Who do you think is going to get the best service and the most?
Because they can be like, here's a little extra. You know,
This is for advertising.
Yeah.
You know. So they look at us, but the fact that we've been around almost 12 years now, and we're kind of like an underground thing, and that's kind of cool. I would rather be doing what we're doing.
Oh, I've seen you guys and bought your liquor from stores. You're in the stores near me, and
yeah. Well, this whole
several
area,
kinds.
You know, it's honestly
Seen actual, like cardboard cutouts, tiny and stuff like that.
It's like running a campaign, because like once you get elected, everybody says, well, we send these representatives to Washington, they get elected, but they go right back on the campaign trail because they know within a couple years they're going to have to run for election. So it's just about. So same way here, we get into a liquor store, we do a tasting, you know, we hug babies, slap the backs, and you know, take pictures and all this stuff. Well, then you go back 6 months later, and your shit's not on the shelf. It's like we've been replaced by something else because the sales guy didn't push it or didn't, you know, because we can't take an order. You can't handle it. That's why, I mean, just like everything else in this country, I think everybody says, oh, you're so free. Well,
That's a lot.
and the government has your best interest. I'm telling you, there's so much stuff coming out. The pure evil in this world, Satan couldn't even come close to what Washington and the big banks and all these other people have done to us in the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, you're absolutely right.
I mean, Satan would probably just sit back and say, "Fuck, man, I give up," because
like,
these dudes got game. I can't even. You know, I'm supposed to jump out with a pitchfork. People like, you know, I didn't jump out with a syringe and say, put a mask on and take this, you know, put this drug into you. Well, I make billions of dollars.
Well, that's what the beast does too. Is it sets up a global surveillance grid that puts a mark on you.
And
what
once
do
they
do?
get rid of our money, and it all becomes, I never would have believed that, but the whole time I went to church, it's the mark of the beast. Watch the movie. I'd love to have it. It's probably really cheesy and stupid effects if you looked at it today. But
I love that stuff.
You put a 10-year-old kid in school in a church, and they're like, you know, oh, you take the mark and you can buy stuff and stuff. If you don't take the mark, they cut your head off. You know, and that's like, what in the hell is this shit? That could never happen. But you look now, we freely, you go to Walmart, if you don't have correct change, we're not giving change back.
Yeah.
I mean, you start to see the manipulation and the control. So is it really a Satan, or we as a species are just so, a segment of our people are so corrupt and so evil that they look at us as cattle. Like, we got to get rid of these people because they're breathing up all the air, eating up all the food, screwing around, having kids who don't amount to shit. We just need just enough to run the machines, and everybody else we'll pump them full of this crap, and they'll die early, and we'll make money off this. We'll make money when they die. We make money when they're in the hospital. Yep. So who is the Satan when it comes down to it? If you took us off the planet right now, you think deers would run around, or bears, or any other animal, any other fucking life form on this planet is going to say, "Oh, we got to be good because the devil." No, the devil's gone. You wipe us out, all this shit goes away.
Well, I guess you could kind of see, like, during, like, the places that had the heavy lockdowns where the people weren't, like, traveling and stuff, how animals and stuff, you're like places you wouldn't think that would have, like, all this abundance of wildlife. Like,
coming out.
In the big cities, you see, like, walking across the 6-lane highways, there's deer and bear and...
Well, whether it's Satan or something else, whoever the people are in charge of our planet are wanting to do exactly what the Antichrist and beast system was going to do. Let me show you this video.
Columbiana County coverage now, and East Palestine is known as the place to be. It's way ahead of the curve on a program.
This, by the way, this is a report from about a year ago, before the train derailment there.
Train derailment last
Yeah,
week.
so we talked about what that is and how they may be trying to distract us from that, but just for a little bit of background, I wanted to throw that in there. Let me hit this. This is before I think it's about 6 months ago.
To provide better treatment for anyone in the event of an emergency. I learned how it works and how it can help everyone in East Palestine.
My ID provides quick medical information for emergency responders. Darlene Chapman is the outreach coordinator for this project, and she's an EMT.
If they're in a situation where they can't tell us or they don't have any family around, this is something that would make my life easier.
My ID works by taking a camera phone and pointing it at a QR code. It provides valuable medical information such as allergies, breathing difficulties, or other conditions, so you get proper treatment and care.
If anybody sees the QR code, you'll be able to scan this and get the information. So it helps that person, not necessarily just here, but anywhere in the nation.
There are a few options for My ID: a bracelet, key fob, necklace, or attachment on your watch band. You can choose the one which fits your lifestyle best. That's up to you. Orders will start in January. The fire department has already collected $5,000 in donations to help.
That's our ultimate goal. We want to be able to give this for free to the citizens and provide them with that extra layer of care so that we can better treat them.
The offer includes Unity Township, which is served by the East Palestine Fire Department. These items
do I
cost
think
around
Mustache Man
$20.
or that lady there with with the short hair? Do I think they are part of? Or do I think they're satanic? People trying to get the chip in us or whatever? No, I don't.
Pretty good cover if they are.
But the point is, they also didn't invent this My ID thing. This is something that somebody came around and sold them on and said, hey, you want to be sure you have this in place. So you're...
Like I say, indirectly, it's like the technology as itself is good, but it's like who is distributing, like what we said, who's distributing this?
Who can manipulate it for
who's
their own.
Using it to... Like
facial recognition, you keep hearing China's got this stuff where you're walking down the street and you're constantly being scanned. And they know who you are and everything. It's like, oh, well, they're only looking for the bad people.
What happens when they decide you're a bad guy?
Who decides who's bad and good? You vote the wrong way. You say something against the government in public, and then they zone in on you. And next thing you know, you're being hauled off. I mean, like you said about the movie 1984. Mm-hmm. Like you said, we're done surpassed that.
Oh yeah,
but we just don't know it yet. I think we got a taste of it during the pandemic, and a lot of people didn't realize what was going on in their schools until the kids were home and they're seeing some of the shit that's going on the screen that the teacher's talking to the kids and they're like, what? Mm-hmm. We've just been so blinded by everything that we don't know. I think we're starting to wake up now to see, but we just don't know most people just want to go to work, come home, eat their meal, watch, some TV, play some video games.
It's kind of how we get here.
Drink a little vodka and moonshine and do the thing. But when you're that blinded, I mean, you start going down the rabbit hole and you start thinking, is it really that bad? I mean, is it really that way? And you're either going to, I mean, how do you go out? You go out the street and start screaming, they're going to arrest you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't really know how to, and we can't trust, well, we'll vote for this guy because he's one of us. He likes us. Well, we done went down that road and see where that leads you,
No.
So what do we do?
Well, like I've said before, and one of our viewers, I'll mention a couple of our viewers here. Alvin, he's talked about how we are already in the dystopia. The dystopian movies give us the idea that all this stuff is coming in the future, but he explained using Fight Club as an analogy.
Most of the dystopian films take place actually now in the past.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And these things all have an element of this, and it all starts, and in the movies, it all starts with a reasonable excuse of why they want to put this in. And most of I just think it's weird that they have this, and they've specifically mentioned for breathing difficulties and heart problems and all the stuff that people are having in East Palestine right now. Yeah. They said, oh, well, we want you to have this in place. We're going to start it in January. And then in February, this derailment happens.
And also, did you all notice this past week with the rain we had, that it was kind of weird? I've noticed, I saw a lot of my friends.
It was a lot of misty, teeny tiny drops and kind of greasy. But
it was kind of greasy. Yeah. It was it smelled sulfury.
Yeah.
As far away as we are, we're not in that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Me and my partner at work kept thinking the other one had farted.
Even though, I mean, right now it's I'm working in.
I didn't attribute it to the rain, but now that I think about it, that's probably what it was.
I'm actually, it's kind of. So I'm working close to Eastman and Domtar, so it's sometimes you think that you're like, okay, it's just that, but whenever you see other people that are, and you're like, this rain seemed kind of weird, after a week after all this stuff has gone down, and all that stuff within that certain radius of that, and everyone, the people I guess who some would say are more conspiracy minded, are saying you're like, hey, this is almost on board with a Chernobyl style event of how the detriment this could do to the planet and to us, the species, and every other bit of life in this area.
Yeah, it's coming towards us from the water, and then on the air it's going northeast. So it's kind of really dispersing all over the Appalachian Mountains. Basically, it's going northeast, and then it's coming down on the west side of the Appalachian Mountains in the rivers. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people say that a lot of these disasters are actually rituals, and there may be something to that. A lot of them seem like they are, and as people have said, 9/11 was a big ritual, and that a lot of these things are satanic rituals. I want to move back into this real quick. I saw this come up on Twitter, and this is a lot of people were saying that this is Hillary Clinton requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, to the location of his body and the location of the buried Nephilim. And actually what it is...
The Thoth chambers, which is... Thoth, Gilgamesh, are kind of coincide with each other. So.
Well, this feller, what's his name here? Dinetra D. Senegar, it's actually a FOIA request. And it has been closed. So... Did this guy, Dinetra D. Senegar, did he obtain any documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body and the location of the buried Nephilim, from Hillary Clinton's email? Your guess is as good as mine, but a lot of people were saying that meant that Hillary Clinton was talking about the location of that, but it really was somebody presenting a FOIA request for it. Now, a lot of those Hillary Clinton emails and a lot of the ones from the Podesta brothers, her campaign managers, they did end up showing a lot of stuff that was what was called satanic, or what you could call satanic imagery and ritual abuse and things like this. And I feel like all this was kind of cast aside with the Pizzagate thing, because what that originally started out was people found in these emails these code words that were used by pedophiles, and they're on the FBI website, and they say that that's what they mean, and they're talking pizza and hot dogs and all these different code words that they use. And when this all stuff was coming out and the people in the 4chan and Twitter and stuff like this started talking about it, that they were seeing it in these emails, the news quickly jumped on that and made it about this pizza parlor. I mean, there were people who were saying that, oh, this pizza parlor is, really weird. And there were a lot of weird videos and flyers and weird bands that used pedophile symbols playing there.
Yeah.
But the news twisted it into, oh, there's child trafficking running through a pizza parlor, which was never what people were trying to say for the most part, and diverted the attention away from these emails that had...
Wasn't there a guy showed up with a gun and something, and they, turned it into... I look at this stuff, and anytime something is starting to come to light, they drip it out there, and you hear about it, and they drip and drip, and a year later, all of a sudden, it's like they admit it. And it's like you're not even outraged anymore. Mm-hmm. It's like you're almost tempered to the point where, yeah, okay, well, the world's fucked, and these people are, pieces of shit. And I said it, but I've got to go to work. I got to pay my bill. Eggs cost $5 a fucking dozen now. So you're so watered down, and then you also you want to, what can I do? I mean, you start thinking, if you get out of line, you think you're free, you get out of line and start saying something to see how fast the hammer will come down on you.
That's right.
See how fast that something, and of course us just talking here, there's some big boys in the game who got millions of followers. Not knocking your following or anything, but you're looking at people who Joe Rogan, people who go out there and talking about vaccines and stuff, and they're getting hammered, and all of a sudden, if somebody's big enough to try to put down somebody like that or try to squelch their,
They think about how many 100,000 follower accounts they nuked without us ever hearing about it.
Yeah.
Because Joe Rogan's big enough to make us think about it, and they still went after him. And like I said, there's accounts like one that I really like, 100,000 followers. Quite frankly, he's like always on thin ice with YouTube. He never does any. He's a great show. He never does anything like that you could say he was threatening anybody or hateful or anything like that. But he's all the time. They will say, oh, this was hateful conduct or something like this. And but meanwhile, the Satanists are out there and that's one of the reasons that we're seeing a return of the Satanic Panic is because you're seeing these satanic artists like Marina Abramovic and
isn't it funny? They're not even. They look, nothing like. They may be lewd. Some of these artists are kind of vulgar sometimes or whatever, but they don't look like some of the people who.
They don't look like the people that populate most of my playlists.
Yeah, back in the day, it's like, King Diamond, he comes out. You got Kiss, people said, even Ozzy. Even old Ozzy got blamed for being a Satanist and all this. But a lot of these people don't, now I've seen some of this chick's art and this weird, as weird as I do stuff, I would never, I don't know. It's really weird. It's really disturbing.
Yeah. And
you have to wonder if there's a bigger meaning behind it. Or they just kind of, I'll put some blood on a baby doll and stand there half naked. And they're like, it's art.
Yeah.
That's just really distasteful and stupid.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff I was talking about. Like your stuff for somebody who is, it's like I said, somebody raised in a Southern Baptist church and not really cultured or anything. I can see why they would say that was satanic. Mm-hmm. But yours tends to always have a message, or sometimes just fun. But either way, it's not. It's dark, but it's not, and it could be disturbing, I guess. But it's not evil. I guess that's the thing. And to me, when you do something that is, and I guess that's another form of art too. But I see why this is bringing people out to say that Satanists are coming back when they see stuff like this, and they maybe think it's a lot more popular than it is. But it is the most powerful people in the world are hanging out with this chick, this Marina Abramovic, and. They're doing this spirit cooking where they're fake drinking blood. They say fake, and fake drinking semen and breast milk, and who knows? It's like I've always wondered with that cremation of care ceremony. Yeah, they say it's an effigy, but how do we know it's really an effigy? How do you know they're not really killing a baby? I mean, how do we know? They say it's an effigy, but if it wasn't, would they ever tell us? No. But yeah, there's a lot of this stuff that is okay. So I think we as people on the lower rung of the totem pole, on the cultural level, we see evidence of lower level people doing crazy stuff, and we're supposed to be told that means that satanic stuff is spreading throughout our society.
It's right next door.
Yeah, and it's everywhere all around us.
Basement is a torture chamber.
Yeah, and they want us to have that idea.
Harvesters,
They want us to have that idea in order to control us. Meanwhile, the people who are basically in charge of this planet are doing way darker stuff than they're accusing.
Like Epstein and and that kind of stuff,
And that actually is what runs the world: blackmail and sacrifice and
the whole idea is if you get somebody in power and you get them having sex with somebody underage and you video it, then you can control that person.
Absolutely.
And when that person has a lot of power and influence, then they're going to do what you want.
Yeah.
And you start to, it's pretty easy, I guess, to get enough people to, and it's sick. I mean, because if anybody, I would have hoped that anybody in this room, if they got approached by somebody and said, you can nail this 12-year-old and it's all good. You're on this island. Nobody will know.
Yeah, no,
even if you'd
have to kill me. I'd
be like,
just kill me.
Put me on the next boat out of here. I mean, that's not my gig, But there's enough people in this world who, and you got to wonder when people's popularity starts waning.
Yeah,
they ain't had it. Most of these people, I look at music, kind of like these people who are doing this show, and people thinking, oh, they got this hidden stuff. Back when I grew up, if that song come out, they'd be like, who the fuck is that? I mean, there's no talent there.
Yeah.
So their careers start to wane and they start to dry up, people like Madonna and these other people, and they're like, well, I got to do something.
You got to do something that's going to make me stand out.
Yeah, I got to get some, shit shot in my lips, or, do some kind of weird photo with this chick who does, baby dolls dipped in red paint and shit, and it's real edgy shit, and it's just enough to get their name back. Are they really doing this stuff? I mean,
I'd say that some of them are probably into it. I know Madonna is really into occult philosophy and things like this. So I wouldn't be surprised if she was.
You see that symbolism. You see the videos like where people are doing this with their eye.
Mm-hmm.
Or they got the symbols and all this stuff. So you're either playing around with it or you're really up to your neck in it.
Well,
and you don't know. To me, even if you played around with it, I don't want to. If you really think I've got to put something out there that would make people think I'm part of this shit, or I think it's all right, then I have nothing to do with it.
Well, let me pull it back to there. I was talking about this with. I don't know if you've seen the show, Wilbur, since I've been talking about it, but I got a book that I've been wanting for a long time, The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. And and it's been really eye-opening because he's in all these secret societies and Rosicrucians and Freemasons and Golden Dawn and OTO. He travels in all these circles. He started the Philosophical Society, Philosophical Research Society. I mean, he was a fellow traveler of Madame Helena Blavatsky. So he's in all these circles, and those are who led rise to the Greer Crowleys and your LeVays and your Golden Dawns and your OTOs and Church of Satan and all this stuff. And one of the things that Manly P. Hall says in that book that really was enlightening to me as far as how these people see the world, he was explaining Nietzsche's philosophy of part of his philosophy was that the whole world. The whole reason we're here as humanity is to create the most magnificent specimen of human being that we can possibly create. And I think he called it the Ubermensch, or the Superman. Mm-hmm. And he believed that, we should have arranged marriages and royal families and eugenics and in order to create this, Superman. And Manly P. Hall says, now, at first, when you see this, it sounds like an awful thing, right? It sounds like Nietzsche must be an evil guy, but he's really not. This actually has the things of your sacrifice, virtue, and truth. You're here for a higher purpose. It may hurt we don't like that we have to hurt you people and selectively breed, take some of you out of the gene pool, and we rule over you. We don't like this, but we're willing to sacrifice it. We're willing to put up with these feelings of dread and horror that we feel from doing these atrocities to you. We're willing to take this on ourselves because we're serving a higher purpose of creating a Superman. And I wonder how prevalent that is in these circles, because you see something like the cremation of care ceremony that the Bohemian Grove does that we talked about earlier, where they do the mock sacrifice of an effigy of a child. Well, the whole purpose of this is to kill their care. They say, "Be gone, dull care." We don't want to have care for humanity, because the things we are doing against humanity should traumatize us and should cause us to examine our actions and change what we're doing. But we're performing this ceremony to help us ignore the effects that we're having on humanity. And I really think that's the way a lot of these people view it when they do these sacrifices and things like this, because it's ultimately for whatever higher power they serve. It is worth more for them to turn down. They know it's wrong, but they're going to do it anyway because this higher power they serve is more important to them. Yeah. And I really think that's how a lot of these people do it. And a lot of them feel, and we've seen people like Jimmy Savile he was a big radio DJ in the UK. He was very close with the Queen. He was very popular in high society. He was arrested for child abuse. If you want to look it up, you can. Jimmy Savile, all kinds of horrible things. We're not even going to say on YouTube because we'd probably get the video pulled. And then the same thing, Denny Haskert was the Speaker of the House of the United States around the same time, doing the same thing, Republican Speaker of the House.
I remember.
You also had, you remember in the 80s, Wilbur, did you ever hear about the McMartin preschool trial where the daycare, there was a sexual abuse allegations, and they said there were tunnels under the...
Isn't it weird how even today, in today's thing, it's tunnels?
Yeah.
There's this underground thing where kids are being kept and harvested, and, it's, I don't know if it's a rehash of... It could be real.
Well,
but once you get so much out there, it's like you honestly don't know. They can almost put it right in front of you.
Do you mind if I have one more of these?
No, have what you want.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because you don't know, and it's almost a way that they want to put it out there so they can. It's just like the whole UFO thing. They put stuff out there. The false information, and that's also just like 9/11. A lot of people, I can't think the shit went down the way that.
Yeah.
There's more. I think there's more there, but you get out and start talking about it, you're a nut.
Mm-hmm.
Even though your gut tells you that this does not. That's like what's going on right now does not make sense. There's so much stuff going on that it's almost like they're just trying to blind us to, and it works. I think back in the day, when you were a politician, you could get away with getting on a train, stopping in this town. Well, what's this town about? Well, they're coal mines and whatever. I'm not going to shut down mines. I'm support coal and I'm this and that. Get on the train, go down, 50 miles down the road to the next town. What's this town into?
They're into their environment.
Yeah, so. they're a little more, they like, I'm going to do this and that.
We're going to shut down the coal.
Yeah. And then you get elected and it's like, by the time you hear what this newspaper said, well, that can't be right. He told me right here, mm-hmm. He was for this. And it all just turns into mud. Today, though, you've got people like this. And if they're not pointed at you, they're pointed at themselves. So there's so much shit flying around that you don't know what. I mean, you could actually put, here's Jesus Christ. This is him. He just came back. And people will be like, that's bullshit. I want to see some titties. TikTok titties. I want to see some titties. And they're like, oh, here's your Lord and Savior. Well, oh, yeah, I heard he's coming back, but, UFOs are here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Project
you really
Liberty.
do not know. It's so much crap going on. I mean, I would easily go back. You build a time machine, man. I'll go back to 1974.
Well,
Not that I don't know what the hell. I was pretty young then. I don't know. But I would go back.
But everything was based in reality, what you could actually see and hear.
You go out in your field and you play with the next door neighbors. You pick up a game of ball and everybody plays ball. You go home, you go on and fix supper. Dad says, do your homework, and you're in bed by 9. Yeah. Simple life, I'm sure there was shit going on, but we didn't, I'm sure the devil was out there doing his thing, But I think what we're seeing now, I honestly can't believe that there's one entity with horns and a pitchfork. What's wrong with this world is all humans.
It's like
human based, human caused, and if they can hide behind old religions and beliefs and all the crap that they put out there in front of us. But I think most people are good and want to do good.
Yeah.
And if we can't ever get to the point where we think that we're getting overtaken, because if we really all just stood up and just put a stop to this, and there may be some people have to sacrifice their lives to that. But I mean, if you knew like you could go back in time and stop Hitler, would you?
Yeah.
And even though you knew you were going to sacrifice your life, I'm sure if you was Jewish, you'd say, hell yeah. I'll give up whatever to go back in time and put a bullet in his head.
The way modern news and stuff is though now, it's like, can you even trust that that's really what happened in history? Like if they lie this much in the news, imagine what history does. But I like this is a good example here. The McMartin preschool trial, that was real prominent in 1983, where there were some accusations made against this school that they had these satanic tunnels and they had these ritual abuse on these kids, but it was actually, it was found to be not true and impossible. There's no way any of this stuff could happen. And they made this real prominent, put it out there real big. It was the main one.
They could time travel and move people to a different.
No, that was Operation Pegasus. Now
that one was like, and how could you? They went to trial. These people were like, how could you really believe like? While your kid comes to here, we're taking them to a different.
Yeah, look up Operation Pegasus. I've seen an interview I was talking about, quite frankly, earlier, from a man, I can't think of his name, he's a doctor, but he claims that he was part of that, and that there was actually a time machine and looking machine device that he could go through. And
they call it looking glass?
Looking glass, yep. Yeah. And it was they did it with children. And he claimed that he went back to talk to George Washington before the Revolution and all kinds of stuff. But it's very interesting. And this guy is not, he's a doctor of some sort. He's not just your crazy run-of-the-mill guy. He's an educated crazy guy. But who knows?
That might be worse.
Yeah. Well, but this McMartin preschool, this was made the poster child for the satanic ritual abuse allegations, and it was not true, and they was able to easily disprove all this stuff in it. But at the same time, I can tell you right now, because I've worked with people who were involved with it. I've worked with actually a survivor of some of this, and there were a dozen or so cases of underground tunnels under schools, children being removed, satanic ritual abuse, and they were all in the mental health system because of what happened to them. A lot of them had dissociative identity disorder. A lot of them had auditory and visual hallucinations of things, and would recall the abuse years and decades later. Mm-hmm. And this stuff did really happen, but this was always the case that was shown out there to show that it was not true. I've got an article here from about 5 real life cases of satanic ritual killing. So they do happen, including the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez.
What if they were using that as a guise to do just horrible things to other people?
That's what I think they were doing, is they were using that one to show that it was fake, and then while it was really,
it couldn't be happening.
While it was really happening, that's what I think.
Ramirez, because remember AC/DC caught some hell. They had the song
Night Stalker, yeah.
And he had the pentagram in his hand and all this. But look at there's more individuals.
Yeah.
And you're always going to get that.
Well, the most prominent.
If you're going to preach God and religion, you've always got to have that adversary, and that's the devil. So some people may think, well, maybe the devil's not that bad a cat. Maybe you got a raw deal.
And Dustin, you were talking about the West Memphis 3,
yeah,
and how they had some. They had been accused of.
Yeah, those 3 were. They were basically just wrongfully accused of these murders of these. How many kids? I don't remember how many kids it was. I wasn't prepared.
I forget too, but
it just did hit me. But those 3, they were basically wrongfully accused because they were in like a scene that seemed satanic. Because they enjoyed metal and some of the macabre things.
They may have liked the stuff that we 3 could like,
yeah.
And they just say, depending on whoever's the sheriff and the prosecuting attorney, whoever the justice system says, well, those cats have always been in trouble and they're kind of weird and they like this Marilyn Manson guy. It's got to be them. And, the rest of us are normal. We're just cheating on.
And they're sentenced. They were sentenced to like life sentences for murdering these few kids in a satanic ritual, then that they didn't do. And I remember in the late '90s, there was a band who called Zayo. They had a song called "Free the Three." It was about the subject matter. That's how I figured out about all that. Learned about it was through that band, in which they were. They were kind of like a band that leaned in a quote like a Christian kind of thing. They were on a Christian label at the time, but they enjoyed macabre kind of things like that. And the vocalist, he enjoyed like horror movies. And
well, the story of Jesus and the resurrection is pretty macabre when you think about it.
Yeah, you're right. Which, that track is it even has like this whole thing. He reads like some stuff from like the police reports. It was this done shoddy. There are people smoking. It's like, there's dead bodies on the ground, and there's people and they're like, throwing cigarettes down. They're like, there's these Satanist kids over here.
Not taking too much care of the scene.
Yeah.
Well, the Franklin cover up is one that really, it got a lot of press in the 80s, but then it kind of just went away. And it started in November of '88. There was the Omaha, Nebraska Franklin Community Federal Union was raided by federal agencies, and it was missing $40 million. And there was all this money in this tiny town over here, and there was a Republican Party activist named Larry King, and he was behind all the people basically in Nebraska politics, but behind the Nebraska Republican Party. And it turned out that there was a lot more going on than missing money. There was drugs, Iran-Contra money laundering, a nationwide child abuse ring this is probably the people who that I know personally who were victims of this were involved in this cover-up because there was a nationwide ring of them, and this did get found out. The DeCamp, what's his name? John W. DeCamp wrote a book about it called The Franklin Cover-Up, and it goes into all the details, and there's so much more than we can get into in the amount of time we have because it's such an in-depth story. You'd really have to spend the whole 2 hours on just it, and I'm honestly not educated enough to do a show on that just yet, but I would like to in the future. Because this was a true story. It happened throughout the 80s, and it was powerful people behind the Nebraska Republican Party and connected to the National Republican Party who were doing a lot of this satanic stuff, and they were the ones who were after the satanic. They were the ones who were wanting to.
It seemed like the 80s it was full of that.
Yeah,
you had the PMRC and.
And that was bipartisan. That was Democrats and Republicans together.
And it's like they've always got to create this. Something that they've got to come in and
make a dragon to slay.
They got to slay it, but it did seem like, I don't know, the 80s was just like completely overran with that kind of stuff. But you're starting to see more. But the thing is, it's more darker now. It seems to be more about kids, and you didn't see that kind of stuff. It was more like, they got secret messages in.
Yeah, not in the pop culture.
It was more sex and drinking and drugs, and and you start to see more. It seems like what they're saying that this stuff has been going on with children, and a lot of this kind of stuff, the more really dark kind of stuff. If you want to be a Satanist and say, I don't believe in God, I believe in my own destiny, but I'm not going to go out and hurt anybody. I just don't want to. I'm not buying into this control.
Yeah.
More power to you, as long as you're not hurting anybody. But this newer kind of saying that this darker kind of thing, it's got to do with kids and the harvesting of people and their whole view towards everybody else. Like, they're like cattle. They almost need to call the herd so they can, because they know they got all the answers. They should have all the resources. The rest of us are just button pushers or not really contributing anything. It's almost like cattle. They want to thin it out. If that's true and those people are really out there, then that scares the hell out of me more than anybody with the horns and a pitchfork.
And I think that's why they focus on these low-level events of ritual murder and things like this, because when they have that, they can use that to freak you out and keep you from focusing on who's actually in charge running all this stuff. And whether or not they believe in Satan, they're doing all the things that somebody who was in charge of, if Satan was in charge of the planet, he'd be doing all the things that they're doing. So, Wilbur, I've kept you a long time. I didn't mean to keep you so long, man. I know you got stuff to do. I'm sorry about that.
When the sun goes down, that's when I feel
That's when you're just getting ready, yeah. But I know you have plans, so I don't want to keep you much longer. Why don't you tell us where people can get some graphic work done, where people can get some Vodka Moon, and when can we look to find that on the shelves?
Well, we still got the government process with labels and stuff like that. It's pretty close, probably in a month or two. But you can come to the distillery and pick up, whether it's my stuff or our stuff. We got a lot to choose from. I'm doing graphics for anybody that comes in and wants help with stuff. It's getting kind of tight though, my time and everything. So
yeah, he's staying busy. Every time I go over there, you're got that printer just cranking it out.
Yeah. Now, when I work on stuff that I have a personal interest in, something that's weird or something like that, I kind of, I'm not so much business. It is a business because you got to keep the lights on and everything, but I have decided this year to focus on more of my own personal stuff because, when I was in high school, that's what I wanted to do. I want to sell shirts out of the back of a hearse and a coffin.
You're doing it,
not your typical, when you tell your resource manager at school, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to sell shirts out of a coffin. They're like, what the fuck? They want to send you
instead of the cookie cutter, I'm going to go to college and do this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to sell shirts out of a coffin. It's like, what?
Yeah. So after 21 years with Walmart and all this other, corporate bullshit, I'm working at a place where I can kind of focus. I'm 58 now, and I think, well, if I got 10 more years, I'm going to come out of the liquor, come out with my own website, my own shirts, my own, I've got a hearse, got a coffin. So,
at least put that one big bam into the world that's like, this is.
It's either put up or shut up, So I'm finally in a position now where I can do these things, and whether it works or not, I don't really, I'm not looking to be on Elon Musk kind of where people's following my tweets and whatever, but. I try to do something that if you don't like it, I'm not doing it for everybody. That's just my own. I think there's a lot of people like the darker side of life and everything, but they're not bad people.
Yeah.
They like to be scared because, that gets your heart pumping, you're alive. When you don't have a pulse, well, what's it matter?
What do you do?
Something's got to excite you, whether it's liquor, music, sex. Something's got to make you, feel alive and want to get up in the morning and actually. And I think that's what we've been kind of screwed over the last couple of years. People just want to sit in their house. Man, we need to get out. We need to see music and create and see a different side of everything instead of being force fed this bullshit.
Well, we've lost the drive to go out and do things, and however you feel about church, that's been part of that too. They closed down the churches, like, so if there are some churches that were probably not really worth going to, but there's probably some good ones out there that they try to shut them all down too, and so it's not just the rock and roll. They shut down everybody, the people in charge. So like I said, it's
we all just need to band together and burn the White House down.
I'll have to edit that out.
Beep.
Yeah, but that.
Wait a minute, Madonna said the shit, and she got away.
Oh yeah, I know. She's Madonna.
She has a vagina, maybe.
And she's a
different opinions on a lot of other things.
Yeah. Well, I say just be good to people and try to do what's right and everything. And if you just do that, as long as you don't I don't care what it's always been my philosophy. If there is a devil, whatever. I mean, I was raised good enough to know to be good to people.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go out there and like take advantage or be mean to somebody. I've had people do me wrong, and I'm like, that's some bullshit right there, But I didn't go out and stalk them or try to hurt them or everything. Just decent values in this country, and that's what we're known for, to be the savior, to be the shining light. And I think the people that's in charge now are the devil. They're the ones who are just screwing up everything. So we're either going to sit back and take it and let them, or we, I don't know what to do at this point.
Well, if you're still listening out there, I hope you're watching Unibluffer. That's one of our viewers who had mentioned that he would like to see more solutions-based things, and I think exactly what you're doing and what I'm doing is kind of the solution.
It's almost
to this.
individual, you know.
Yeah, we have to start on an individual basis and get out there and not be afraid to do stuff. Like you're starting your own line. You're putting your name out there. You're making connections with local community, people who you do business with. You know them face to face. You know, you're getting out there.
The biggest thing is to get a hold of your kids. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, our parents actually, you know, they whooped our asses. They told us what was right and wrong. And, you know, you may have thought it was pretty heavy at the time, but you look now when there's people don't even know what their kids are being exposed to.
Yeah.
They're too, maybe they are too much into the phones and letting their kids, you know, I don't know how old I was until I actually seen a Playboy. You know, that was a big deal. Now you got kids got their own phone and they can hit Pornhub and just see everything in the world at such a young age. You know, you got to take responsibility for your kids and stuff. And actually, you wonder why people have no damn sense. Well, if you got sense and you were taught right, then you got to pass that on to your kids, and hopefully there'll be some inkling of that be passed on. Now, if you've got idiots out there having kids left and right and they don't give a shit, there's got to be enough of us that do care and try to have some decency about us and care about where this rock's going.
Yeah.
Spin them through space. You know, we got to make our mark and not let these people or the evil people, the devil, or whatever, win. I mean, that's just, I'm not getting religious.
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
It's all about, you know, right and wrong. And I think there's enough of us. You can listen to Kiss, you can drink and, you know, have weird sex. When you take your wife to the hotel on a vacation, you try some kind of cool shit that you've seen on Pornhub. But, you know, you can do all that shit and still be a good person. Yeah. It's just like when you start to hurt kids and hurt other people and start to manipulate what's on this planet for your own good, you need to be taken care of.
Deleted.
Whether that's, you know, we got to stand up and just wipe that stuff out.
Yeah. Not stand for that. And again, part of the main solution is build a community that you're a part of. Make good connections with actual people. You know, be self-sufficient in the way that you can. I mean, we all need each other, but there's certain things that you can do to keep you from needing more. And you know, one of the things I'm going to try to do this year is to do a better garden than I've been doing in the last few years. I'm going to try to get some chickens going, all that stuff. If we all do that stuff like that, and you know, even if you're not growing, you know, if you're not raising chickens, if I have eggs and you got tomatoes, you know, we can do a trade. You know, as long as we know
the barter system.
Yeah, we know our neighbors, know your communities, know if you buy meat, you know, there's probably a local meat store near you.
It's a lot better.
Yeah, you
go buy at the Walmart.
Yeah, go to the local meat store. Meet your butcher. Meet the guy. The local butcher probably either raises his own cows or buys them from somebody real close. In your area. Yeah. So
and also, if you would like to hunt, if you could befriend a local butcher, he can strip. You know, it's like if you don't know how to dress, you know. If you shot a whitetail,
dude, you look at how much is on YouTube. I mean, before you used to have to go, like you was talking about earlier, you had to go work with somebody for 2 years to be able to do something. You get on YouTube, there's so much information. Used to be you had to go be an apprentice or this is information that was just
an hour you could
you're like, oh, my headlight blew out. Well, I got this kind of car. You type it in. There's like 20 videos.
Yeah,
some of them are pretty shitty, and 20 minutes when they could have told you in 5.
Yeah.
And dumb music and, you know, all that stuff. But you can find out how to change your light bulb and not take it to a mechanic. There is a wealth of information. The internet's not all bad.
And if you do have to take it to a mechanic, go to a guy. Don't go to a Pep Boys or, you know, go to the guy down, you know, who's local and talk to him. And I bet you he'll tell you all about what he's doing. And, you know,
part two the next time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's all about making connections. And that's you know, do business as much as you can locally. You can't always, but
that's just it, man. A lot of walls have been put up to break us down and confine us, especially in the last couple of years. I mean, it's just so obvious that if we all stand up and everybody kind of just does what we know is right.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the power to do this. It's just,
what of those in power want to put so many laws to stop us from doing things?
It's hard to you know, it's pretty scary because you watch the news and what you're being force fed, you have no reason to get up in the morning.
Well, it's like I talked about with Tim last Wednesday. It's almost like these people, they've got onto the boat and they want to pull the ladder up and leave us out in the ocean while they're up enjoying the nice boat. They want us down here struggling to stay alive and tread water. And we don't have to do that.
Those people, though, never wanted to. They don't know what. I mean, you've got to have just so many of us, the button pushers and the laborers, or those kind of people. Because just because you got $1 zillion in the bank, don't mean you can't get out of the rain.
Exactly.
Some of these people don't even have a damn clue because they've been spoon fed all their lives. They got some kind of hedge fund and whatever that shit is. I don't know, but you're still going to have us.
Yeah.
You can't. But the fearful thing I have is that they're really going to try to
replace us all with robots and then get rid of us.
Well, it's like if you got enough money, you can put a vaccine out there and make $1 billion off of it, and it may kill some people. It's untested, but everybody was scared and got in line and did it.
Yeah.
The devil pretty much tells you, say, hey, I'll give you all the goods, all this, you can do all you want.
Yeah.
That when you check out, I get your soul.
Yeah. Well,
these people are just wanting everything now plus all the money.
Part of the modern satanic panic thing is Mr. Beast, this YouTuber who does he used to do like crazy videos like I'm gonna fill this pool with goldfish and jump in it, or something. But he started having people tell him, well, you should be helping people with all this money. And so he said, okay, I'm going to fix 1,000 people's eyes, blind people that can have a surgery. I'm going to fix them. And so he pays for their surgeries. I think it's like $1,000 surgery or something. And like for whatever reason, their Medicaid doesn't cover it. So he covers their surgery. They can see again. And then people are saying, oh, Mr. Beast, covering people, doing miracles, making people give their sight back.
Like,
it must be the devil.
You see, like, there's chocolate bars and stuff, and they're all like, it's good, it's organic, there's no shit in it. And it's just like, he's doing more good than these people are like, oh, the Hershey bar, and that's so good, and it's got all these fake chemicals and stuff in it. This guy's putting something out that's actually, like,
usually,
wholesome.
When you see somebody trying to do what's good, that's the ones that they try to shut down.
Yeah.
So if you see somebody like gathering rainwater, trying to be off the grid, and they come around and want to find them, or
they want to put laws up to say this is illegal, we're going to put you in jail for collecting.
They may come to you one day. It's like, man, Cliff, you're putting out these videos making people think too much.
Yeah,
we got to put into that.
More than likely, they'll just close my YouTube channel down.
Go on Rumble, man.
I'm on Rumble, and if you haven't already, go ahead and I'll put it in the description. Go like that. I'm going to put Wilbur's information in the description so you can go follow his page and keep up with everything he's doing. And Wilbur, thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. I appreciate it.
Second one, it's always, you never know what the hell's going to
Well, we definitely want to have you back again.
Great conversation.
Yeah, and I always like it. And I'm sorry Tim couldn't be here because he really wanted to talk with you, but he had something come up, especially on the Satanic Panic thing. He thought it would be a good show to do with you guys together. And I really thought so too. But if you wouldn't care, if you're still with us, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go over to the Rumble channel, hit that there. Go follow the links in this description and find Wilbur stuff, what he's doing, and what else we're going to be doing in the future. So we'd definitely like to have you back. And Wilbur, I'm sure you'll come back sometime. I hope you will. And we'll see you next time.
Lets me.
All right, man. Well, I've kept you.
Community too, like we said,
Yeah, exactly.
Local.
Exactly.
Everyone here does local small things to build up a better community with each other.
Well, Wilbur, we've kept you from your wife long enough, so I'll let you go. Thanks for bringing us the Vodka Moon by the Forbidden Fruit and the Blood Orange. It's freaking delicious. I want another drink of it.
It's
enjoy the Forbidden Fruit, the more pomegranate one, a little better, but they were both they're
really close.
Yeah,
they're very good.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's a strong mixed drink, but it just tastes like a weak mixed drink. Yeah. So that's kind of.
You could put some Sprite in it, do other things with it. But
you probably won't want to do all that. The alcohol flavors, you can tell it's alcoholic, but not like. It's not like taking a shot of liquor. Yeah. And for being 60 proof, it's not like something like if you ever had like 35 proof or 35% Sky. Vodka that's 70 proof. It's still kind of rough. It tastes like liquor. This doesn't really taste like liquor. It tastes like a mixed drink.
It's very good. I mean, I'm not a heavy drinker by any means, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
And plus, it's got the theme, it's
kind of neat.
Blood.
It looks like blood.
It says a chilling vision was born in the moonlight. In the darkness, the spirits intertwined. Vodka and moonshine stitched together to create something ominous, something intoxicating. The transformation complete. forbidden fruit. Guys, if you want a good reference for this, have you ever made like a jungle juice, something like that? That's kind of what it tastes like, where it was, I can't believe this is that much alcohol, and then it'll knock your dick in the dirt. But that's kind of what it tastes like, yeah.
I wanted flavors that
It's definitely
you see
drinkable.
drinks with pomegranate or
Pomegranates
blood
are
orange.
good. They're good at covering up the strong aftertaste. of
But they
stuff.
actually have the alcohol with that flavoring, and they're so close together. I don't know. One of them will win out, and then I'm looking to do maybe a lime.
Yeah.
I like something
Okay.
that's like a
Well, I like
toxic
that
green
too.
that way.
Yeah. That'd be good.
You got a green and you've got a
You
more
could
of a
have some
blood.
other sort of cover with it.
Man,
Being like a
If you do a green apple, like a sour apple, I'd love
like
that.
a lime.
I'm going to have one more, and thank you, Wilbur, for bringing it, and thank you for joining us. I can't wait to see you on here again, and we will see you folks on Wednesday when Tim and I are going to do the news and current events roundup. So glad to have you with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time. Thanks, everybody.